Amidst the rustic charm of Corsica, an island newly claimed by France, a child was born whose destiny would become inseparable from the fate of a continent. It was 1769 when Napoleon Bonaparte entered the world in the town of Ajaccio, a place caught between ancient Genoese roots and the burgeoning influence of French rule. Born to a family more noble in name than in wealth, young Napoleon was a true son of the Enlightenment, his path shaped by the twin forces of rebellion and revolution. He was educated not on his native island, but on the French mainland, in military academies where his Corsican accent marked him as an outsider. Yet, it was in these halls of tradition and discipline that the young cadet's intellect and ambition burned brightest. By the age of 24, as the French Revolution upheaved the old order, Napoleon emerged as a beacon of military prowess. His decisive action at the Siege of Toulon etched his name in the annals of French heroes, capturing the attention of a nation in dire need of leadership. In the fullness of time, whispers of a remarkable destiny for this young Corsican officer would spread far and wide. Yet, the sands of time would not reveal whether his path would lead to enduring glory or to the ruins of ambition. This is the saga of Napoleon Bonaparte, a tale of ascent from the rocky isle of Corsica to the opulent palaces of France, a journey that would forever alter the course of history. As the fires of the French Revolution consumed the old regime, a young Napoleon Bonaparte emerged from the chaos, not just as an officer of artillery, but as a visionary with an unquenchable thirst for greatness. It was a time of unprecedented upheaval, where the old social order was dismantled and a nation sought to redefine itself. On the battlefields of Europe, Napoleon's star ascended. He wielded not just the power of guns and steel, but the force of ideas, inspiring his men to fight not for kings or emperors, but for the very notion of French glory and the revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. In Italy, he faced down the armies of the old monarchies, outmaneuvering and outsmarting his foes at every turn. With each victory, he did not just expand French territory, but also the mythos surrounding his name. He was not merely a general, he was becoming a symbol of French might and ambition. But ambition such as his could not be contained within the confines of the battlefield. In a bold move, Napoleon turned his sights on the very government he served. The coup of 18 Brumaire was a masterstroke of political maneuvering that toppled the Directory and set the stage for a new era. Napoleon, once an obscure Corsican officer, had become the most powerful man in France, the first consul, in a government of his own design. In this new role, he would steer France through a transformation that would touch every aspect of life, from the cobblestone streets of Paris to the farthest reaches of the empire. This was just the beginning. The age of Napoleon had dawned. With the authority of France in his grasp, Napoleon set about creating a new order. His reforms were sweeping and systematic, touching every facet of French life. He understood that to truly consolidate his power, he had to build a state that was efficient, secular, and above all, under his control. The Napoleonic Code was perhaps his most enduring legacy, a set of laws that restructured French society, prioritized merit over birthright, and laid the groundwork for a unified legal system that spread across continents and persists to this day. Napoleon's savvy extended to matters of faith with the signing of the Concordat of 1801, which reconciled the French state with the Catholic Church, yet ensured the Church remained subordinate to his rule. Education reform established a network of schools to foster a new generation of French citizens loyal to the state, and the creation of the Bank of France stabilized the economy, securing the financial future of the nation. In 1804, the first consul took the imperial crown and placed it upon his head, not as a gift from God, but as a claim to power by his own hand. In that moment, the French Republic he had sworn to uphold gave way to an empire with Napoleon at its helm. The French Empire under Napoleon was vast, stretching from the Iberian Peninsula to the edges of Russia. His Grande Armée was invincible, his family seated on the thrones of Europe, and his law the new measure of justice. But as the empire expanded, so did the resistance to his rule. Nationalism stirred in the occupied territories, and the tides of war were ever shifting. The stage was set for conflicts that would engulf the continent and test the limits of Napoleon's genius and ambition. Napoleon's hunger for expansion knew no bounds. His armies marched across Europe, bringing the continent under his sway through a combination of diplomatic alliances and military victories. The battles of Austerlitz, Jena, and Wagram were testament to his military prowess and the strength of the Grande Armée. The Battle of Austerlitz, often hailed as his greatest triumph, saw Napoleon outmaneuver a superior Russo-Austrian force, sealing his reputation as one of the greatest military commanders of all time. Yet Napoleon knew that battles were not won by strength alone. The continental system sought to cripple Britain's economy by closing European ports to British goods. It was a bold move, one that would have far-reaching consequences beyond the battlefield. The Peninsular War, a grueling campaign that drained French resources and sowed the seeds of resistance across Spain and Portugal, became Napoleon's Spanish ulcer. It was a conflict that would erode the aura of invincibility that surrounded him. But it was the invasion of Russia that marked the beginning of the end. Napoleon's Grande Armée, once thought invincible, was decimated by the cruel Russian winter and scorched earth tactics. Napoleon's catastrophic retreat from Russia in 1812 was the result of a disastrous underestimation of the country's vast and punishing landscape, coupled with a severe Russian winter. His Grande Armée, ill-equipped for the freezing temperatures, faced starvation and disease as the Russians implemented a scorched earth policy, destroying resources that could have aided the French. This left Napoleon's forces with little sustenance or shelter in the harsh environment. Additionally, logistical challenges hampered the movement of troops and supplies, with stretched supply lines unable to support the army deep inside Russian territory. Russian military tactics further compounded Napoleon's difficulties. Avoiding large-scale confrontations, Russian forces engaged in guerrilla warfare, weakening the French through a series of hit-and-run engagements. Napoleon's own indecision, particularly his delay in Moscow, further eroded his army's strength. As the campaign wore on, desertion rates climbed, diseases spread rapidly, and the lack of Allied support left Napoleon's army isolated. The catastrophic retreat from Moscow decimated the Grande Armée, which started with over 600,000 men and returned with less than a fraction of that number. This retreat was a pivotal moment that marked the beginning of the end of the Napoleonic Wars, leading to the eventual downfall of Napoleon himself. The disaster in Russia had not gone unnoticed. European powers, sensing weakness, coalesced into new alliances. Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia formed the Sixth Coalition with a singular purpose: to bring down the Emperor of the French. Back in France, Napoleon was not yet finished. He raised another army, but the magic of his name had diminished. These were the young and the inexperienced, the so-called Marie-Louises, sent to face a continent in arms. 1813 brought the Battle of Leipzig, where Napoleon fought fiercely against the Allied armies. It was Europe versus a single man. Despite moments of brilliance, the odds were against him, and the battle ended in a crushing defeat for France. In 1814, with Paris captured and his enemies closing in, Napoleon abdicated the throne. The man who had once held Europe in his grasp was exiled to the island of Elba, a tiny speck in the Mediterranean, a prisoner of his own insatiable ambition. But destiny had one more card for Napoleon to play. In less than a year, he escaped Elba, returning to France for a last gamble for power. The nation, weary of the Bourbon monarchy restored in his absence, welcomed him back. For a period known as the 100 Days, Napoleon was once again emperor. It all culminated at the Battle of Waterloo. Under the gray skies of Belgium, Napoleon's fate was sealed. The Duke of Wellington, along with Prussian forces, delivered the final blow. Napoleon's dreams of empire, his army, his very freedom, all fell on that sodden field. Waterloo marked the end of an era. Napoleon was once again forced to abdicate, and this time exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. There he spent his final days. Far from the glory of his empire, he reflected on his past, dictating memoirs that would contribute to the legend he became. Napoleon's legacy is undeniable. His military strategies are studied for their innovation, and his Napoleonic code underpins the legal systems of many countries. His impact reshaped Europe, influencing its boundaries and politics long after his fall. Napoleon once said, "History is the version of past events that people have decided to agree upon." As we look back on his life, the debate continues, but the fascination endures. Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of his time, yet timeless. A figure carved not just in stone, but in the memory of an era that forever changed the world.